So let us begin with Allah's blessed name and direct our attention to knowledge and the system of education in our civilization and what Dajjal is doing, what is the danger which he presents to us. Our Prophet said, Sallallahu Ta'ala Alayhi Wasallam, he said, teach the child from infancy until the age of 7. Teach the child with love. That is the teacher, to teach with love. And he said from age 7 until age 14, teach the child by disciplining the child, establishing firm habits in the child that will remain with the child all through his or her life. Like the most important one of all is to perform your salat regularly. The most important one of all is to recite the Quran every day. Eventually, at the age of 10, you would be reciting the whole Quran from cover to cover once a month. This is the second stage. And he said, after the child passes the age of 14, you cannot teach the child other than by becoming a friend. By becoming a friend of the child. This is the psychology of education that has come from Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. If we are to teach with love from childhood until age 7, then the child has to grow up in the arms of love. The child has to grow up in a stable home where love will be shown. And so Allah gives us a social system of the relationship between the male and the female, which makes sense for the home to be a stable home, to be a happy home, and for the child to grow up in the arms of security and of happiness. If Allah has blessed me today to have this profile around the world as a scholar of Islam, when I was born in a little island in the Caribbean, just off the coast of Venezuela, far, far, far removed from the world of Islam. If this has become possible in my life, it's because I started off in a happy home. I started off in a stable home with father and mother and children living together in a unit, a stable unit. I never had a part-time mother. Oh my gosh, Imran, now you're going on the wrong road. This is the road to trouble, huh? But I don't care 2 peanuts. I don't care 2 peanuts for those who cannot stomach the truth. I'm not here to preach Islam to please them. Who do they think they are? It doesn't matter to me how many they may be. And it doesn't matter to me what are the consequences of my proclaiming the truth. If I cannot proclaim the truth, tell me so, and I leave your dictatorship, and I go somewhere else where there is freedom. The most important thing of all for me is freedom. So tell me, when I no longer have freedom, I pack my bags and leave. But so long as I have freedom, I must proclaim the truth. I never had a part-time mother. My mother was at home, full-time. And that meant a lot in the psychology of education of the child. It gives to the child a certain internal security and the maintenance of an internal balance that is not disturbed. But when a child grows up in a broken home, and when Christmas time comes, he goes to the supermarket to buy Christmas cards, and he looks for one for mommy and her husband, and he looks for another one for daddy and his wife. Can you imagine the heart of that child? Christmas is coming. This is for them the greatest time of the year in this country. That child is growing up with a broken heart because that child came from a broken home. So if you want to damage a person, destroy him as a child. And he'll grow up to be a gangster. He'll grow up to take drugs. He'll become violent using firearms. And he'll enter into the world of promiscuity. And the child is only 14 and she already has her first abortion. They say, no. You can't get married until you're 18. That's haram. But it's okay to have your first abortion at 14. And then the second abortion at 15. This is the destruction of the human being. And so our first argument for proper education and therefore for the construction of the house of knowledge is to try to ensure that the child grows up with love. And love means love in a home, a family. The one who created every human being and who created the water that we drink and who created the food that we eat and who created the air that we breathe and who gives us the light of the day and the darkness of the night, this is the one who says that he created the male and the female the way he created the night and the day. He says so in the Quran. And so night and day are like male and female. They complement each other. They are two halves that come together to make a whole. And the day has its functions to perform. Allah says, وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا, and I gave you the day so you can work and toil. وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا, and I gave you the night for a different purpose, that you can have rest in the night. So they are functionally different. Similarly, the man and the woman, the male and the female are functionally different. And it's when father and mother fulfill their functions as male and female, as father and mother, that you can have a stable home and therefore a stable society. But when you come with this greatest achievement of modern Western civilization, which informs me, Imran, this is the greatest civilization it has ever been the good fortune of mankind to witness. And this civilization has come to replace all that came before it. Every civilization that came before this civilization is now the language that Toynbee used in his book, Civilization and Trial. He said, moribund and obsolete. He says, they have all been relegated to the museums of history, including Islamic civilization. Sounds like arrogance to me. And the greatest achievement of this civilization, and they cannot stop me from saying it, no, is for a man to marry another man and get a marriage certificate. But is Western civilization's greatest achievement. But even a fool would understand that you are disrupting the complementary roles of the male and the female. The family unit is being destroyed. The home is no longer going to be the home as Allah has ordained. And so the child who grows up in that broken home, and the child who grows up in this bogus home, is going to be a child who eventually will end up in a mental asylum, disoriented. And so we begin the process of education by returning to the home that Allah has ordained, and returning to the marital relationship that Allah has ordained. He gave to the father certain functional roles, and I'm not allowed to talk about it now. And he gave to the mother certain functional roles, and the modern feminist woman comes with a sword in her hand, stop it, don't talk about it. And our response is, get lost, who are you? We are scholars of Islam, we've come to preach, who are you to stop us? It doesn't matter to me if you're a Pakistani woman, you know, the modernized one. And Allah gave us marriage, a system of marriage, which gives you a stable home. And when a girl reached the age of puberty, now she can become pregnant. Only now does she qualify to be married, not before. To marry a girl who has not reached the age of puberty, you should be sent on a one-way ticket to Mars. You want to marry a girl who is only 6 years of age? Send them on a one-way ticket to Mars. But in addition to that, Allah speaks about rushd, a certain measure of maturity, not a PhD from MIT. And when once the girl has this age, she has reached the age of puberty, and she has some measure of maturity, so she can handle the home, the finances of the home. She's now, according to Allah's wisdom, she's ready for marriage. But today's world says we are more learned and intelligent than the Lord God Himself. That's the brainwashing that we have to live with today. And so if you accept that no, she must reach the age of 18 before she can be married, you're wasting your time listening to me. We reject that. But when Dajjal sends the order, every single government in the whole world, including the world of Islam, have to enact legislation. I don't know if Pakistan did it, prohibiting marriage before she reaches the age of 18. What happens when girls get married early? We have early marriage. This has always been in all civilizations in history until Dajjal took over the world. Answer, you had more stable families. The marriages lasted. and you had bigger families, and people lived a happier life. And in this age of progress, yes, this the best age ever, with the best civilization it has ever been the good fortune of mankind to witness. Nearly every marriage is ending up in divorce. They meet each other and they pledge eternal love. And eternity lasts for 6 weeks. 6 months. And then it's his lawyer and her lawyer taking over. So is this progress? If we want to bring back education and reconstruction of the house of knowledge, we have to restore the stable home. And to restore the stable home, we've got to go back to the relationship between the male and female, and I don't have the time today to expand on this subject, but this is under attack around the world today. The relationship between the male and female in society and the role of women in society. The role of women in society. And as a consequence of this modernist thinking, the just modern feminist revolution, we are now in this state of debacle. When the child is in that early stage, up to the age of 7, the most important thing to be done in the process of education is to build the memory. If you build a vast memory bank, if I may be allowed to use that term, then that child can eventually emerge with an amazing versatility. He would not only become a medical doctor, he might also have engineering, he could have philosophy, he could have all these other subjects. What is the sky is the limit when you build the memory bank. And so we began education in Islam by trying intelligently so, sensibly so, to build the memory bank of the child, that the child will memorize and memorize and memorize. If the child is memorizing poetry, Urdu poetry, well, still it has some benefit. But if the child is memorizing the Quran, mashallah. And so this is what we did at that age, building the memory bank. And along comes Dajjal, and today I was lecturing in a place called Jambar in Java in Indonesia, maybe about 2-3 months ago. And there were about 1,000 students ranging from age 10 to age 15, 16. And I am addressing them every morning after Fajr and every night after Maghrib, 1,000 or more. And it went on for about maybe 2 weeks. So I said, all those who have a smartphone, put your hands up. And everybody put their hand up. I say, all those who don't have a smartphone, put your hands up. Maybe 1 or 2 who were too poor. In this country of such great poverty, every child already had a smartphone. And what is a smartphone doing to that child? Depriving the child of what could have been a chance for him to build his memory base at that early age. Because he's wasting his time with the smartphone. Dajjal is very sensible, very intelligent. He plans cunningly. And we are now experiencing something else. That as the child is subjected to the electromagnetic waves coming from the cell phone and the wireless internet and the cell phone towers and so on and the smartphone, his memory is being damaged. Check it out. I checked it out. I take a group of little girls, 7, 8 years of age, in an Islamic camp, and I said, come, let's see. This is the name of the first surah. This is the name of the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth, only 5. Al-Fatiha, Al-Baqarah, Ali Imran, Al-Nisa, Al-Ma'idah. Now go, walk about, repeat it, come back after 5 minutes. They couldn't remember. They couldn't remember. The only ones who showed signs that the memory was still powerful are those who were not using the smartphone. When the child is in that age, the early age, he needs to be going outside and playing and jumping and running in the flower garden, enjoying the flowers. And if instead of that the child is hooked with a smartphone or a laptop, you're denying something else to the child. The process of education is that you not only begin with the memory, but you move on from the memory to something, oh my gosh, it is so beautiful. Something that Allah gave to us. Something called the imagination. To build castles in the sky. Imagination. And the imagination of the child is triggered off by observing the signs of Allah externally. Nabi Muhammad ﷺ once came to the masjid in the morning weeping. He said, two verses of the Quran, 2 passages came down last night, and they were so powerful in my heart that I could not help weeping of this. And in Surah Ali Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks and He says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. That surely in everything that there is in Allah's creation, in the samawat and the earth, the material universe, there are signs, there are pages to be read. There are pages to be read, pages written by Allah. But in order for you to read those pages, you got to go out. You got to go amongst the flowers. You have to watch the river. You have to look up at the stars and the moon and the sun. You have to feel the breeze and look at the clouds. You have to look at the birds. And then the child's imagination is triggered off. And the child now begins to read pages written by Allah. But you deny that to the child by taking him away from the trees and the flowers, and he's hooked to that, you know it. In every house, in every room of every house now, the television set. And the only way father and mother could get some time for themselves is put the television on. And the children are hooked to watch television. And in the process, they are robbed of being able to interact with nature. This was what the Prophet was weeping about. And the Quran went on to say about those who observe and read the pages of nature that Allah has written. He calls them ulil albab. Allah goes on to say that when you read the pages of the book of nature and your imagination is fired off like this, they are eventually going to become a people of zikr. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم. And so the examination and enjoyment of the external phenomena in the universe is meant to lead to some internal reaction in the heart of remembrance of Allah. And after the child is triggered off for this zikr of Allah in the heart, and father and mother playing a role in this, then comes a higher stage, when now the child engages in thinking. First there was memory, and then there was imagination, and now there is thinking. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And the child is now engaged in critical thinking of everything in the heavens and the earth. And would you believe that this is possible at age 14? Yes? My father was a school principal. May Allah have mercy on his soul. And he did not marry until he was age 40. He was waiting for someone, but it did not work. He waited and waited and waited for her, and then he said, I can't wait anymore. And then he went to the head of our Muslim community. He said, find me a wife. And that's how he married my mother. But during this time when he was working up to the age of 40, he would use his income and buy books. And he had an excellent library. He chose the books a lot of the books were imported from abroad. And my father never knew. He never knew it. He died when I was 15. And he died without knowing that when I was 12, from the age of 12, I would go down into his library. He would not know about it. And I would be reading these books on Islamic philosophy. It was a little difficult for me, the one on Islamic philosophy. But the books on Islamic history, they fired off my imagination. I went traveling all over the place while reading these books. And that was the age of 12 and 13 and 14. When he died at 15, he never knew what I was doing in his library. And so the imagination was built up at that time, reading these books. When you reach to the adult stage now, you have built a bank, a memory bank that is formidable. You have built up your imagination with the study, for example, of history, of battles fought long ago and this and that and the other. In these also, there are pages written by Allah, not just in the flowers and the birds and the mountains and the rivers, but also in history. And so, when I went to Pakistan now to study, I went to Al-Azhar first at the age of 21. But at the age of 18, Maulana Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari of Pakistan, he came to Karachi. I came to Trinidad. I was only 18 years of age, and my father insisted I had to go to the best college in the country. The best college in the country. And when this Maulana came to Trinidad, he was going to come to my village masjid to speak on Islam and science. said, what nonsense is this? What connection could there be between Islam and science? What is this man going to come to talk about? I was skeptical. But when he started to speak, my mouth was open, and it remained open all to the end of the lecture. It took one lecture from a learned scholar of Islam, one, to change me. Because I had the background already. I could witness immediately, this is scholarship. And from that day, when I first listened to him, the desire was there in my heart for rising in the house of knowledge. And so, when I went to Al-Azhar at the age of 21, I couldn't find anyone there with that kind of scholarship that he had. And so I left Al-Azhar and I went to study with him in Pakistan. And that was the best decision I ever took in my entire life. After studying with him and building up my critical faculties of thought and introducing me to the Quran and introducing me to how to study the Quran, I graduated, I went back home with a Pakistani education. How could this compare with an Oxford education? How could this compare with a Cambridge or Sorbonne or Harvard or Yale or MIT? It can't even compare with Qaid-e-Azam University. You're a Darul Uloom man. But this was not an ordinary Darul Uloom. This is tomorrow's lecture. So he said to me, when you go back to Trinidad, I don't want you to be a Maulana in a masjid and you give one bad khutbah, they fire you. I want you to earn your livelihood independently from your study, from your service to the mission of Islam, which is why I earn my livelihood from writing my books, and nobody can fire me.